White Walker, the scary creatures that literally took everyone's breath away in the Game of Thrones. They were the first characters to be introduced in Season 1 and were absolutely trivial to the storyline since then. But who can forget the controversial Season 8 where all their hype was just thrown out of the window and they got a rather unsatisfactory end? But worry not, because in today's video, we will discuss exclusively about the White Walkers and the potential spin-off that was in the works. Yes, there was a spin-off sanctioned by HBO called Blood Moon, and the focus was entirely on the Long Night thousands of years ago. I hope this video serves as a tribute to those legendary characters who haunted our dreams in the middle of the night. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Before we go into explaining everything, we have a very small request for you. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who are the White Walkers? Now, I know most of you people are aware of the scary creatures of the night and what they are capable of. However, before we discuss their ultimate purpose and the need for a potential sequel, here's a small refresher on the Army of the Dead. The White Walkers were a primary part of the Song of Ice and Fire written by George R.R. Martin, and were technically the main villains in the Game of Thrones. They were led by the Night King, who had pale white skin and was extremely strong compared to other humans. They can't be killed with normal weapons, and only Dragonglass and Valyrian Steel are fatal against them. Dragonfire was also useless against the Night King, as he just laughed at the mighty Drogon. But you already know these things. However, do you know how and why they were created? The White Walkers were created out of desperation. So, around 8,000 years ago, the first men arrived in Westeros and started to attract the children of the forest. To protect themselves, they created the White Walkers, who were way stronger than them. So, obviously, the Night King revolted and made an army of his own. But these White Walkers aren't just aimless zombies, but are strategically very sound. And they also have an ultimate purpose to bring forth the Long Night and kill the Three-Eyed Raven. The ultimate purpose to bring forth the Long Night. Remember the good old days when Mance Rayder and his army of 100,000 wildlings wanted to march south of the wall? Well, it was because of their fear of the White Walkers and the Long Night. So, what is the Long Night? As the name suggests, it's a night that basically never ends, and the Night King had a sound plan to achieve it. It's a simple two-step process. First, he wanted to kill the Three-Eyed Raven, which was Brandon Stark. By killing him, he could basically hit delete on the entire history of mankind. Second, he would turn every single person into a White Walker by just, raising his hands like a hero in a Bollywood movie. The Night King was almost successful in his plan until a young Stark girl said, "Not today." But that's a story for another video. There are also various other theories about the purpose of the White Walkers and why they were marching south of the wall. The most interesting one concerns Craster's baby. So, we all are aware of the infamous Craster's Keep and how he sacrificed his male children to the Night King so that he could create more generals in his army. Well, after the death of Craster, spoiler alert, there was a need for the Night King to get more generals, and because he had a small gene pool, the Night King was looking forward to the Lords of the North who would sacrifice their illegitimate children to their cause. But hey, it's all just a theory, and nothing was confirmed by George R.R. Martin himself. Fans were hugely disappointed after seeing an untimely end to the White Walkers and the Night King. There was a need to give them justice, and HBO understood the assignment. Therefore, it is reported that they sanctioned a spin-off series that would focus primarily on the Long Night. The cancelled spin-off, Blood Moon. Things are getting serious when HBO sanctions a budget of around $30 to $35 million just to shoot the pilot of a series. The series had two potential titles, The Blood Moon or The Long Night. The pilot was directed by S.J. Clarkson, starring the iconic actress Naomi Watts. The potential storyline of this series was one of the most intriguing. Viewers would get to know what transpired when the first man arrived in Westeros, how the world looked back then, and their dynamics with the children of the forest. We would also get in-depth information on the creation of the first White Walker and why they revolted and made an army of their own. But the most intriguing part has to be the Long Night. There's a sequence in Game of Thrones when Jon Snow is mining Dragonglass to defeat the White Walker, and in that process he comes across a cave painting made by the First Men. There we get to learn how First Men, including all the major houses and children of the forest, fought together against the Army of the Dead. Seeing that sequence in action would be fascinating. Also, people want to learn about the creation of the Wall and the ancient magic spell that everyone talks about in the series. With so much information to cover, it was confusing when the Blood Moon spin-off was cancelled, and instead, the studio went ahead with the production of the House of the Dragons. Although HOTD is amazing, The Long Night would have been even better. So, why did they cancel this interesting spin-off that had the potential to do better than the Game of Thrones? Well, there are several reasons, but the most intriguing one concerns George R.R. Martin and the Song of Ice and Fire. The reason why Game of Thrones Season 8 was not liked by the fans was because of its story and the resolution that every character got in the finale. Also, the writing of Season 8 wasn't done by George R.R. Martin, as the books only covered events till Season 6. There was a fear that the same would happen with the Blood Moon spin-off, as George R.R. Martin has never written in detail about the Long Night in any of his books. Instead, it's more of a passing statement where characters are reminiscing about that time. So, creating an entire series out of a passing statement would be a massive gamble for the studio, who are already criticized for their final treatment of the Game of Thrones. It is believed that because of this reason, the studio decided to scrap the Blood Moon idea and instead cover the Targaryen Civil War, which is written in detail in the Dance of the Dragons. Every GOT fan accepts that the show's success was because of the creative prowess of George R.R. Martin and his impeccable narration. Without that, Season 8 was borderline unwatchable, and there was a case that Blood Moon would go through the same fate. Interestingly, Blood Moon wasn't the only spin-off that was cancelled. It is believed that HBO was working on multiple projects, including a spin-off based entirely on the character of Jon Snow. You know, Kit Harington. However, the one in production is called A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, which will focus on the events around 90 years before the Game of Thrones. George R.R. Martin is hoping for a similar cinematic treatment like the Marvel Universe, and will tie up all the spin-offs together, where The Long Night can potentially be their endgame. No pun intended. Do they really need a separate spin-off? The White Walkers were easily the most entertaining storyline from the Game of Thrones. Their hype was unreal, and everyone was looking forward to the Long Night and the subsequent battle between the living and the dead. It was all going great until the final season, where things seemed a bit rushed, and, it felt like the makers were more focused on the Iron Throne storyline instead of the Night King. We, as viewers, feel that there should be some compensation regarding the rushed finale, and that can be done through the Blood Moon spin-off. There are also many unanswered questions that can be answered through the spin-off. The White Walkers were created by the Children of the Forest to protect them, so how did they lose control of them? Secondly, why did the Night King wait thousands of years before attacking the Seven Kingdoms and marching towards the Wall? There was also a theory making rounds suggesting that it was a Stark who was turned into the Night King. Or, it was Brandon Stark himself. Maybe that's why the Night King was able to touch Brandon Stark through the pigeon. The only way to find out the truth is to revisit the Age of Heroes and the First Men. There's a strong need for separate spin-off featuring just the White Walker. I mean, we don't want to find out if Lord Baelish is the Lord of Vale or not. We just want to see the White Walkers and their fear creeping into the hearts of the people. That's what attracted viewers to the Game of Thrones, and the Night King should be given his due justice. Why the White Walkers had the most trivial storyline in the GOT universe? Anyone remember the Song of Ice and Fire? The prophecy of the prince who was promised? Well, all of this was overlooked in the final season, and many questions were left unanswered. There was also a callback to the White Walkers in the House of the Dragons when Viserys is talking about the dream of Aegon the Conqueror, as he gives the dagger to Rhaenyra Targaryen. These are subtle instances that prove the fact that White Walkers were easily one of the most trivial parts of the Game of Thrones storyline. Jon Snow devoted his entire life to fighting them, and even got killed once, but the climax of the Night King brushed over all the hype of the previous season. When watching the series for the first time, everyone is convinced that the Night King is the real enemy, and in the end, it will come down to living versus the dead. The Battle of Hardhome in Season 5 was a stark witness to the dangers of White Walkers and why they should be stopped at all costs. All this hype was mashed down into a single episode for the Battle of Winterfell, and fans are still not over the White Walkers. Therefore, a spin-off should be the way to pay tribute to them, as they were the most trivial part of the Game of Thrones storyline. Marvelous verdict. There are several spin-offs of the Game of Thrones currently in production. With George R.R. Martin back at the helm of things, it is expected that the Night King may get screen time in the future. With House of the Dragons also making mention of the Long Night, it would be a treat to see the real North again and relive the fears of the Army of the Dead. However, this could all be a potential theory, and we may never get to see the White Walkers or the Night King again. If that's the case, then the Night King can easily be the most misunderstood villain in the A Song of Ice and Fire universe. So this was our explanation of why the White Walkers need their own spin-off. If you have any potential theories about the same, then please do let us know in the comments below. Also, if you're a fan of House of the Dragons, then do check out our channel for an in-depth exploration of the entire Dance of the Dragon and the unfoldings in the recent season. Until then, Valar Morghulis. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.